The fun is in the winning after all, isn't it? Great day, college football for Clemson fans as the Tigers upend the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, hand them their third loss. Clemson gets over 500 at 5-4, 31-23 win. And it wasn't necessarily that Clemson got out of their own way. It was just that Notre Dame made an equal amount of catastrophic blunders. And, the thing with Clemson is if the Tigers could just avoid the crazy mistakes, they'd win these games because the other teams aren't making them. In this case, Notre Dame had two really bad errors. They had a pick six to Jeremiah Trotter, and they muffed a fumble, which turned into a field goal for Clemson. So they handed Clemson 10 points. But Clemson really did just the same. Clemson had a pick, almost six, returned to the 2-yard line, ran in by Estime the very next play. And they also lost a fumble at the end of the game. The defense stopped them. So they gave away 7 points, and it could have been more. But the thing with Clemson is they're good enough that if they don't just lose the turnover battle so badly, they could beat these teams. They could beat good ones like Notre Dame. What was most impressive or I guess most encouraging to me was the Tigers had a lot of guys out. And there was a lot of players who really stepped up and rose to the occasion. And I want to spend most of this time talking about them because especially the ones who are younger guys, really, this season is what it is, right? Clemson at best is going to go 8-4, go to an okay bowl game. You'd like to end well. You'd like to, end with some momentum, make sure you don't lose the recruiting class and so on. But there's no playoff. There's no ACC championship. So it's really a lot about next year. And I think that's really encouraging when you look at some of the guys who are out and the guys who stepped up. So Antonio Williams was out. I thought Sage Ennis played well, obviously different position, but he helped fill the void a little bit. But Marcus Tate was out, and Trent Howard started at his left guard spot. I thought Trent Howard played probably the best game of his career. I was super impressed with Trent Howard, so huge kudos to him. Clemson was without quite a few players in the secondary, and that's where young guys really stepped up. Senior safety Jalen Phillips, who starts, is out, and one of the reserves, Sherrod Koval, was out. So making him kind of thin. And Khalil Barnes and Kylan Griffin played a lot, and both of them, freshmen, just really stood out. Khalil Barnes had 3 tackles, a pass broken up, which is all over the place. Kylan Griffin, 4 tackles, had a big interception at the end of the game. If not for a Mafah fumble, that would have been the play that iced it. I was a little concerned about safety, not so much this year, but next year, assuming Makuba leaves, Mickens could leave, Jalen Phillips will leave. So what do you have? Well, Khalil Barnes, Kylan Griffin, and then don't forget you got Ricardo Jones coming in as a freshman. Not to mention Venables, who I think you don't want to see him start, but he could be a good depth guy. So I think they're going to be okay at safety. That was really encouraging there. And then Sheridan Jones was out for this game. He's another guy who's leaving after the season. And freshman Avion Terrell was great. He didn't get picked on. He filled in nicely. Clemson's going to lose Jones, and they're going to lose Nate Wiggins, who you're not going to necessarily replace Nate Wiggins perfectly. He's kind of the next in this great line of, first round, second round draft picks at cornerback for Clemson. But Avion Terrell, Toriano Pride, and Jaden Lucas, you're going to be okay at cornerback at Clemson. So that was really encouraging. And then Maskell was out, and, I've criticized Maskell plenty, but you kind of wonder, are they going to be okay just depth-wise? And, the defensive ends didn't stand out per se, but XT, even though he had 2 tackles, no sacks, in that second half, he brought a ton of pressure and was a big difference maker. Obviously bringing the pressure, but those young secondary guys, they really put the clamps on Sam Hartman. Sam Hartman was awful. Only 146 passing yards. He had no passing touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He was pretty good with his legs, picked up some first downs and ran one in. He was a good runner, so I'll give him that. But he's 0-5 against Clemson in his career now. So I was just really, really impressed with this defense. And again, got to mention Trotter, who had 2 sacks. He had the pick 6. His season kind of started out a little disappointing, true of both him and Carter, but they've both gotten better as the years went on, and now he's had his breakout game. And I was kind of wondering, his season's not as spectacular as expected, and the NFL doesn't tend to draft linebackers as high as other positions. Maybe he comes back, and he still may, but this is kind of what we expected. This is like elite level performance from Trotter. He was Clemson's best player last year per PFF. And if he plays like this, he'll be an early draft pick. So kudos to him. I love him to come back, but man, what an awesome game. But really, beyond him, the other story is Phil Mafah, who was last year Clemson's top guy on offense by PFF grade. I believe he still holds, certainly after this game, I would imagine he'll certainly hold the title of the highest PFF grade on the offense. He had 36 carries, a workload he's not used to seeing, but Shipley was out and he filled in really, really admirably. 186 yards. It's 5.2 yards per carry, which is decent, but given that volume, that's great. Sometimes it was just obvious that Clemson was going to run it. And what I love about Mafah, and I've been saying, and not just me, David Hood's been saying this, and tons of fans, you got to give him at least half the carries. He's been more effective he's the more effective runner, I think the best player Clemson has in offense. I don't really say it with a lot of doubt. But he gets, the offensive line didn't necessarily open holes for him. There's sometimes be a defender in the backfield and he'd either dodge him or plow through, and he's pushing these guys, 3 more yards to turn a 1 yard gain, which is, Clemson, like a third of their runs are about a yard typically. And he's turning those 1 yards into 4 yards. He's turning the good runs of 4 yards into like 8. And that made just a huge difference. Now, Clemson still had their blunders, as I mentioned before. And he had too. He fumbled a pitch, just kind of botched it. Luckily, he jumped on it. And then and the final drive was very, very much like that Miami Georgia Tech game, except, of course, Clemson couldn't have just nailed it. But just poked out. He just should have had it more secure. Notre Dame recovers the fumble, and they had a chance to go down and tie the game. Now, luckily, Clemson's defense bailed him out, but he's got to clean that up. But besides that, I mean, he was great. And I think you got to feed him the ball. You got to run the ball. I thought Klubnik really struggled in terms of accuracy. The receivers just don't get that open. Clemson just really lacks an outside guy. Frankly, Bo Collins is great at running the slants and over the middle stuff. I don't think he's a bad receiver. He's just not really a top flight outside guy. And same with Adam Randall. They have a bunch of really good slot guys, and even Bo Collins, who's not a slot guy, his best route is the slant, right? So they've got to kind of work around that this year and find some solutions for next year. But I thought Mafah was awesome. You got to ride him the rest of the season. Even if Shipley comes back, I think you give Mafah at least half the carries, and you got to lean on them heavier. So really, really encouraged, really a best case scenario to see Mafah get that. I was contemplating whether he would transfer this offseason because it seems like no matter what he does, he can't get that many carries. But maybe this will turn the tide a little bit. I'll start seeing more carries because I'd love to have Phil Mafah back. Kudos to some of the walk-ons who earned scholarships. Florenzo recovered the fumble on the muff punt, giving Clemson the ball and leading to a field goal. And Dominic Thomas, I thought was awesome. He's third string guy, and in this game he was the second string running back, and he just runs like Mafah with a lot of physicality. So it's a play where the offensive line doesn't block it that well. Probably should be a 1 or 2 yard gain. He turns it into 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, and that's what Clemson needs. Sometimes you got the speedy, good running back, but you need that offensive line to open the holes for him to burst through. Thomas and Mafah can make their own holes, and that's what I think was so big in this game. So a lot of positives from this. Finally have some fun in the Valley, right? Just even though there's no ACC championship or New Year's Six Bowl on the line, I think it was just good for the fans, good for the culture. Congrats to Dabo Swinney for setting the record for all-time wins for head coach, passing Frank Howard. But there's still, all the constructive criticism we've given, it all still holds. So let's jump into that. But before I do, just if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do so. If you're a subscriber, just want to say thank you, and please like this video so more folks will see it. I wasn't going to even do this video if we lost, just because I feel like I'm starting to just rehash the problems with the program, and they're not going to get fixed. You're not going to know if they will get fixed till the offseason. And I thought they still very much hold. The offensive line was better, but not dominant by any stretch of the imagination. They were okay. I thought the running backs kind of made their own holes, as I was saying. The receivers were not great. They had 74 total receiving yards. There was a drop that caused the interception that got ran back pretty much for a touchdown. So I still thought the receivers struggled. They're okay over the middle, but just no real presence on the outside. So Clemson's going to either need Bryant Wesco or TJ Moore to become a starter immediately, and maybe they can. I don't know. We'll have to see if they're early enrollees and the impact they make, or they're going to have to get a transfer. But I think, those problems may still hold, but this just showed they're not that far away. They're not 20 transfers away, right? There are a few guys here and there, probably a receiver, maybe an offensive lineman. If Trotter leaves, if Trotter and Barrett Carter both leave, probably a linebacker. And with XT and Maskell both leaving, I think definitely a defensive end. But if all you need is 4 transfers and some tweaking of the coaching staff, I don't think they're so far away that they can't be in a 12-team playoff. They could easily be a playoff contender. So that's what was so encouraging, is that this game to me says they're not that far away. The passing game needs some work. Klubnik needs to mature. They need some help on the outside receiver, but this is not a bad team. This is a team that's made dumb mistakes, and that's part of who they are, yes, but I think it shows they can win out this season, and next season doesn't have to be a 4 or 3 or even 2-loss season. So very encouraged there. Before I get out of here, I just want to say again, check out this channel later today, sometime on Sunday, probably like 2 or 3 o'clock on Sunday. I'm going to drop the basketball season preview. Recorded it before this Notre Dame game, then decided to record this too after the win. So check back here for that if it's not already posted when you're watching this. Clemson basketball's got fans have a lot to look forward to with Clemson basketball. I think Brownell's gone out of his way to build a win now team. A lot of seniors, 5th year, even 6th year seniors. So time is now for basketball, but right now let's just enjoy this big football win. It's a big one. Go Tigers.